review, and dissect every single rock album ever made. Join self-proclaimed rock authorities Chris Carson and Lee Bowie on their epic journey to uncover the true classics. You can find the Classic Rock Album by Album podcast wherever podcasts can be found, including Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Our website address is classicrockalbumbyalbum.libsyn.com. That's LIBSYN.com. And we can be reached on Facebook at fb.me/Classic Rock Album by Album. See you soon from the Classic Rock Album by Album podcast.
On June 27th, Van Halen will be taking a break from touring after 50 shows, supporting their new album, A Different Kind of Truth. They insist it has nothing to do with any tensions between themselves and off-again, on-again frontman David Lee Roth.
He's great. He's hilarious. I mean, you just watch him on stage. He makes us crack up all the time.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we have an incredible guest this evening. You know him as the co-author of the Sammy Hagar biography, Red. It is Joel Selvin. Joel, thank you so much for coming on.
Good to be with you, Dave.
Awesome. It's so awesome to have you. Everybody has read your book, and we're all fans of it. We're doing a podcast episode on the book, so we wanted to highlight it by having you on as an interview. So just to start off, we wanted to ask you, how did you first meet Sammy?
Well, I knew Sammy early in his career. Some guys I knew in college at UC Riverside were in a band with him called the Justice Brothers.
Okay.
So I saw the Justice Brothers play a club called the Wharf Rat in San Francisco about 2 weeks before Ronnie Montrose did.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you really go back with Sam.
So, yeah, you go back. That's like late 60s, right?
Yeah, it might be 1970. But,
okay.
Yeah, it's real early in Sammy's career. He was from that neck of the woods. Fontana is just like, part of the San Bernardino, Riverside, Fontana is like, three cities are right next to each other. He'd been part of that music scene down there, and I knew some guys from college that were in the Justice Brothers.
When did he first approach you about doing this book?
Well, actually, Sammy did call me at some point about it several years before it happened. I couldn't say it exactly. Before the reunion, the Van Halen reunion, it was before the tequila thing had blown up really big.
Right.
I thought it was a little bit like, it didn't make much sense to me, but I was still working at the newspaper. I was the pop music critic of the San Francisco Chronicle.
Okay.
And I retired from that in 2009, had a big blowout retirement party, and then went back to New York just to hang out and sleep on my cousin's couch, and met with my literary agent and asked him, well, what do you think? Books? And he said, well, Barnes & Noble is going down every day, but Walmart is selling books like crazy.
Right.
I said, Walmart? I said, is Sammy Hagar a Walmart kind of guy? and he says, Sammy Hagar in a sec.
Yeah.
So I went back to my cousin's apartment, and I put in a call to Carter, Sammy's manager,
right,
who I've known slightly less long than I've known Sammy. Carter gets on the phone, tells me he thinks it's a terrible idea. He doesn't see any upside in it. The whole thing is stupid, and, I should just go peddle my papers.
Okay.
I go home, and I'm collecting my messages off my answering machine. Remember those?
Yeah.
And there's a message from Sammy, sort of unexpectedly. Joel, I don't have much to say good about you usually, but, I just finished reading your Sly Stone book, and I just wanted to tell you, that's really a great piece of work, and you really did something great. Funny. Okay, go on. Then three phone messages later, it's Sammy again. He says, I just ran into Carter, and he says that you was calling him about doing a book with me. You've got my number. Deal direct.
Right.
So I called Sammy and arranged to meet with him up in his rehearsal hall. And I sat down and I said, look, Sammy, I'm going to tell you what I'm thinking. And, in about 5 minutes in, we're going to have a Vulcan mind meld, okay? and so I start giving him my pitch. And about 3 minutes, he holds up his hand and goes, Vulcan mind meld.
So you sold him in 3 minutes. What was the winning pitch?
I'll tell you the truth, I couldn't recollect it, but Sammy was ready to go. He'd taken a couple cracks at doing this, and he's a very self-aware person. his story is his life, and he lives it every day.
Mm-hmm.
So when it came to time to sit down and do a book, he just told it. He just told it. It didn't really need a lot of work. He just had to like sort of hold still for Sammy,
Right.
keep the tape recorder running.
Now, were you aware of the book that he put together prior that he pulled back, Red Storm Arising?
I was made aware of it. You know, at some point in the process, there was a printed manuscript of it. What I want to say, it didn't quite make the professional level.
No, it didn't.
You know?
No, it didn't. Is that something that you read, or was that something you just stayed away from, or did
I think I read the first chapter, and there was some horrible sentence about rocking chairs and cats' tails.
Okay.
Eventually, at some point in the process, I sort of riffed it to see if there was any material in there that I really needed, and there wasn't. Sammy was so easy to work with. I really didn't need to do much research.
Right. Sure.
Did Sam ever say, listen, I tried to write a book the last time, and it didn't work out so well, so this is what I want to do this time that didn't work out so well last time?
You know, he knew that the book was not happening, the previous effort, but I don't know that he ever really took, that kind of attitude. It's like, he was telling this story. It was really easy for me to do what Sammy wanted to do.
Okay.
Because of the way he was laying it out.
Sure. And what was his goal with this particular book? Did you have an overall goal? What was the approach?
Well, I believe Sammy wanted to have his deeds inscribed. I believe that he felt that he had come to some place in his life where it was time to look back and kind of add up all his accomplishments, because they're formidable.
Right.
And he is underrated.
Yeah.
And I think there was a sense of, once I do this, then I'm a made man, and I can just rest on my laurels. Not that he's rested on his laurels since then or anything.
Sure. And in terms of your position at the paper as the pop music critic, what was your relationship with him? Being that he was a San Francisco guy, did you guys have a rapport?
Now I'm wondering, you know the story, right?
Do I know the story about what?
Yeah, about me and the Van Halen review.
No.
No, what are you talking about? Okay.
That was kind of a famous story.
Okay.
So, Sammy joins Van Halen.
Right.
And has a big nationwide tour behind a big hit album.
Right.
And he ends up that tour with 3-4 shows at the Cow Palace in San Francisco.
Sure.
And I went to, it was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and they added a Monday show.
Wow.
And I went to the Saturday show, and I wrote a review for the paper.
Right.
And I think, we could sum up my review with saying that, this ruined 2 perfectly decent bands.
Oh, man.
Oh, jeez.
And Sammy really did not appreciate it. He was on, the high of all highs, and he saw this in the paper on Monday, and it spoiled his breakfast. So he gets up on stage that night, and he just bellyaches to his sold-out house about the horrible articles in the paper.
Wow.
And what we ought to do is we ought to call this guy up and bug him. Here's his home phone number.
Oh, my
no.
God.
I get home one morning. There's a lot of phone messages.
Wow.
And the first one, Mr. Selvin, I have your old home phone number in Oakland. Would you please have your friends and business associates call your new number?
Oh, wow.
That's sort of strange. What's that,
Oh,
Sam
jeez.
gave out the old
Roger from Bill Graham Presents. Sammy Hagar gave out your phone number at the Cow Palace last night. You might be getting a few calls.
Oh, my God.
Fuck you motherfucker, you scumbag! It's like, so, I changed the answering machine. So I say, when you call, it'll say Sammy Hagar Fan Club, leave your message. And that left some of them going, Sammy, I was trying to call the guy to give him hell, but, I'll get to it back now. But they went on for weeks. I remember the big gossip columnist in town asked me about it, Herb Cain. And I told him with Sammy, this is what passed for wit.
Oh, man.
Then the next time I see Sammy, it's like, some months later at this annual event called the Bay Area Music Awards.
Right.
And they have this suite, hospitality suite. We also call it the hostility suite.
Right.
Where if you had a sticker pass, you could go get an expensive drink and oogle the VIPs.
Right.
It was very crowded. A lot of people had those sticker passes. All of a sudden, Sammy sees me and he starts shouting across the whole room, Joel! Joel! And I'm out of there. I'm like trying to scoot my way out of there.
Right.
Excuse me.
Sure.
Joel! And just before I get out, I hear Sammy yell, I need your new home phone number!
Oh!
Wow.
Wow, he's really gunning for you.
Wow. You can't let go.
It's all good, I don't know who's making who famous.
How did you guys make up after that?
I don't really remember. Sammy liked to get his name in the newspaper. There's no use hating on me for the rest of his life. Yeah, I don't really remember. I certainly didn't take it that seriously, It wasn't anything for me to grudge out over.
So now, were you a big fan of Van Halen with Dave?
Yeah, I remember the first time I saw them being sort of like, huh? What's that? Kind of strange deal.
Uh-huh.
They were very early in the morning on a day-long concert, and it was, huh? What's that? I was sitting up sunning myself.
Right.
So then next time I caught them, they were on, and they were just awesome. They burned the place down. I remember people walking out of that concert, walking down the street, going, yeah, throwing fists up in the air,
Wow.
It was one of those incredible. Remember seeing, concerts and performances I was less impressed by, the US Festival in 82, and,
Right.
I loved Jump. I thought Jump was like the greatest record of its moment.
Right.
I don't know, so I'm on and off with Van Halen and Dave. Dave could be interesting. He also, had pitch problems. He was a hell of a showman when he had it together.
Right.
There's nothing to be said about Eddie Van Halen. I mean, he moved the pegs.
Sure.
Nobody had played guitar like that before.
Sure. And so now, what was your issue with Sammy joining Van Halen?
I just didn't think it had the same kind of allure, had the same kind of appeal, didn't have the same flash. And that Sammy, who I think at that point I'd come around to thinking like he'd pulled a solo act together that was really happening. I remember him doing a headline show, a day on the green at the Oakland Baseball Park, and thinking, Sammy, he finally has got it going on.
Right.
My sense was, and this is a long time ago, was that I was disappointed by Halen losing their singer and thought that Sammy had sort of moved everything too.
Right. Did your opinion change over the courses of the different Van Halen albums with Sammy, or did it remain the same?
I remember the Monsters of Rock tour, thinking that, it was settling into something. I don't think I ever became a fan of that thing. I got to appreciate it more working on the book with Sammy.
Okay. Sammy wasn't leery with you being the co-author, being that you weren't kind of in his camp?
I don't think at that time he'd already approached me about the book, right? So I don't think that was an issue for him anymore.
Okay. So now what was your process with Sam? How did you guys work together? What was the process?
I'd go over to his rehearsal hall, set up a recorder, and he'd talk, and I'd have the recording transcribed, and I'd break his sentences in half with periods where there were commas. I mean, that's pretty much it.
How long was that process?
Real fast. I think there was like 20 sessions, 21, 22 sessions, and they were about 2 hours apiece.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It came together in 3 months or something like that. It really was very, very easily done. Sammy was easy to work with.
Okay.
Now, during that time when he's talking about anything, did you ever question or challenge anything he said?
Oh, man. I was there to do the book that Sammy wrote, right? Did I want him to go, whoa, wait a minute, man, 75 women a week? Do you want to do the math on that, Sammy?
I was wondering that myself.
Oh, no, it's like, and he was abducted by space aliens. I mean, I remember we were at his house the day he came up with that one. We were downstairs. I still remember we were sitting in his gym, and he started talking about being abducted by space aliens. I'm like, oh my God, this is too rich for words, man. Wait till they see this out there.
Now,
my job as a co-author was to just disappear. for the reader, the experience should be like